coming back to you, to the point that Pooja was making, that at least as far as the move to 3D printing and taking that forward as far as commercialization for organ transplantation is concerned, it requires a complex regulatory architecture, a regulatory framework. In your case, I would imagine it's more about sensitization of the many stakeholders involved. Now, how do you scale this up? I understand that you're working with in different states at this point in time, from Maharashtra to Karnataka, and across different demographics as well. How do you scale this?
So, one of the models for scaling is because this doesn't really require expertise to collect the data. So we were hoping that we could set these, screening centers in public health centers and even train the ASHA workers to collect the data, and we just do the analytics part. So that's the way that we can really scale up. So we really need huge government adoption for this.
How much would it cost to screen a student using Giftolexia's tool?
So at this point of time, it's 500 for private schools, and we give it at a 50% discount to government schools.
Yeah, that's really not a lot of money when we talk about the kind of impact that it could potentially have on a child's life. But Abhilasha, the same question to you. You were talking about making better decisions on the back of the data that you assimilate and put together. Are you seeing a buy-in from governments, from local authorities? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones in positions of power who need to make those decisions.
When it comes to climate and environment, it has always suffered from this tragedy of commons, where government and local authorities across the world are typically your de facto buyer. But as Teena mentioned, it's not just in environment and climate, the budget is immense. Like, the kind of budgets allocated globally are in billions of dollars. But the sales process or the buying processes are so complicated, riddled with inefficiencies and so on and so forth, that I think for young startups like us, it is definitely primary challenge. The climate tech in general as a sector, because your user and the client are not always the same. When you're selling a skincare product, I'm selling it to you, you are buying, you're my user, you're my consumer. It is a very simpler dynamics. But when it is, for instance, media or climate tech, when the person paying you the bill and the person who's using or is going to have the utility is not the same, there is definitely a challenge of figuring out monetization. There are few avenues where we have found easier pathways. Sadly, they are not the most impactful avenues. And the avenue where we can make the most impact, save the most amount of lives, there we do face a challenge of navigating the government buying process.
Yes, I would imagine that is the case. So clearly, at this point in time, capital for you is not a challenge, because there's plenty that's sloshing around towards climate tech, and you've already been able to raise $1.5 million. But Abhilasha, what's the roadmap? What's the 5-year timeline or milestones that you've set for yourself on where you would like to take the company?
I think on the capital front, definitely overall the allocations of capital and climate, the overall dry powder is extremely high. However, we are probably in the entire startup world living through the driest markets ever. And in some ways, I think it's a blessing in disguise, because for a company like us and any company, it is really forcing you down the disciplinary route, where you have to figure out the monetization, figure out the business model. So the 5-year plan for us is to kind of really focus on 2 aspects. One is the business model, the monetization, and the clients. But on the other side, the second would also be continuing our efforts toward impact and also having it as one of the priorities. And walking that balancing rope is a challenge, but we hope to be able to excel in it and have both an exceptional business model, but also make a lot of impact through various means.
Yeah, I would imagine. But Pooja, you're looking at raising funds at this point in time. How challenging has it been? How challenging does it continue to be? As Abhilasha was saying, there's lots of money around. People are sitting on dry powder, but it's perhaps the driest summer, winter, whatever you'd like to call it, that we've seen for the startup ecosystem in the last few years. So how much of a challenge is that for you? And 2 challenges, affordability and accessibility, both those challenges, you're trying to solve for. What have you been able to do in order to meet both those fronts?
Yes. So just to answer your question, so we've been completely bootstrapped at the moment, Shereen, and we've been revenue positive in the last fiscal year. And yes, we are looking to actively raise funds, and we are talking to the right sort of partners who do invest into deep tech, because ours is something, like I mentioned, right? We need, the right stakeholders on board, and we need to push for, regulatory approvals and acceptance. But, like I mentioned, regulations have come in place where they have, pushed for alternative models and recognized, 3D bioprinting as, the next gen tech that can actually be used for, different applications, like I mentioned, to develop, to develop models as an alternative to animal testing for pharmaceutical or cosmetic companies, and of course, to develop something as revolutionary as developing 3D bioprinted organs in the lab that can be, that can go for transplantation. Now, having said that, along the way, what we have done is we've bolstered ourselves, and we've had some fantastic partnerships along this way, where we have, tied up with Microsoft, where we are using their AI platform to develop AI-based bioprinting solutions, which is going to be a game changer again for clinical applications. We've also had a strategic collaboration with High Media, which is again a homegrown life sciences company that delves into cells and media, and their vision very much aligns with the vision of NBIL, and we want to collectively sort of take this leap into not just being a Me Too, but more to be a true pioneer in the field of biofabrication.
10 seconds exactly. I'm going to give you all the final comments. Teena, I'll start by asking you, global aspirations, you want to take this outside of India?
Absolutely. Absolutely. GCC and Africa will be our next stops once we have, done enough in India.
Abhilasha, global ambition?
Climate change is a global problem. Our solution is and has to be global. So we're really focused on in carbon markets, Southeast Asia, Global South, I think, Southeast Asia, India, and Africa. But as far as like climate risk analytics is concerned, Japan, Europe, and New York would be our sort of like go-to markets and focus areas.
Well, Teena, Abhilasha and Pooja, we wish you the very best of luck. Thanks so much for joining us here and taking us through the breakthroughs that you've been able to achieve, but more importantly, the impact that you hope to make with your tech companies that you founded. We look forward to hearing more from each one of you on your plans going forward. Thanks very much. We wish you the very best of luck. That's it then on this edition of Young Turks. From all of us here on the team, for now, goodbye. Thanks very much for watching.
मैच जीतो